Hey, what's good, everybody? It's Jordan back at it with another video for you guys. I'm continuing a little bit in my best of series, and I don't know how many I'm going to make of these, but I did my best of budget paddle, and I'm going to do my overall favorite paddle of the year. Now, I want to stipulate that this is not favorite because it's necessarily best at any one thing, but it's the paddle I like the most. I got a lot of playtime with it over the last couple of months, and I've really been enjoying my time with it. And while I don't have a ton of gameplay footage of it just having moved, I am really liking getting to play with it more and more, and I think it's one that a lot of people are going to agree upon is a great paddle to pick up right now. I'm not going to waste any more time with the reveal. My favorite paddle of the year is the Vatic Flash Saga 16mm. This is a Gen 1.5 paddle from Vatic, and this is their second, I believe, Gen 1.5 paddle following the Vatic Prism Flash, which is one of the first videos I ever made on this channel. I've had the pleasure to play with all of Vatic's line to this point and really have enjoyed them as a company and enjoyed the products they have made. Starting with construction, again, this is a Gen 1.5 paddle, which means there is foam in the perimeter of the paddle, but it's not thermoformed like a Gen 2 paddle would be. Another interesting thing about the construction is the way the cells are created. They are a little larger than you see in previous Vatic paddles and in most honeycomb core paddles. This is not original to them. Other companies have done this. Probably most famous would be Paddletech is doing that in their newer models. My paddle came in at just under 8 ounces, and I'm going to use some of the specs of the paddle itself here, probably, I don't know, somewhere on the screen so you can look at those. And I will also link Pickleball Effects' great list. Once again, he has an amazing paddle database. If you ever need a paddle, go check that out. Let's just talk about how I like the paddle. It's a Gen 1.5 with carbon fiber. It's a pretty familiar feel, but here's the things I liked about it. I like that it has really good spin. Again, this is not something specific to this paddle. Almost every paddle coming out these days has great spin, but this one is no slouch when it comes to that. It has a really good twist weight. I didn't feel this moving in my hand very much. I think the stability on this paddle felt great, and it's one of the few paddles I have yet to add lead tape to because I like how light it is, and I feel that it's not necessary as is to do so. And going with that, it has a great sweet spot. I feel that my connections with the ball, maybe it's playing more, maybe it's the paddle, but I think a combination of both really. I feel that the ball connects with the paddle really well. It feels good, and it's very predictable when it comes to that. Now, what makes this paddle a little bit unique, I guess, beyond just having really good spin, really good twist weight, really good sweet spot, is it has an interesting combination of very high power and kind of objectively low pop. What I mean by that is you really do have a lot of power with this paddle when you want it. If you swing through with this, you can get high power generated, one of the highest I've felt, and it feels really good. I wouldn't say that the power is necessarily as high as a Gen 3 paddle or anything like that, but it does feel like a good, fair amount of power. But then again, what is a fair amount of power after all of these bannings, which we will come to at the end of this video? I think that power is obviously very important in pickleball, especially in the direction that it's going, but this paddle doesn't feel unfair in giving you power at all. It feels like a good, solid amount of power that helps you play the game well. What makes this a weird combination is usually when you think of power, you don't think of control, and you don't necessarily think of lower pop, but this paddle has pretty low pop. I think that some people will hear this and not like it, and that makes sense because a lot of your paddle choices are subjective, and I would have been someone who would have said that a month or two ago. I really do like poppy paddles, and I wasn't sure how I would feel when I was hearing, on some threads that this had lower pop, but once I played with it, I really enjoyed it. And I think I enjoyed it because it felt like a Vatic paddle. I mentioned this before, but one of the first videos I did was the Vatic Prism Flash 14mm, and I just shared that video because I thought it was such a cool paddle that I needed to let people know. And a lot of the things I liked about this paddle, I still like about this Gen 1.5 paddle as well. It feels like butter at the kitchen. It just is really fun to get to the kitchen line. It gives you enough power that you can do it a couple different ways, but once you get there, you really do feel confident and controlled, and that's really when it became my favorite paddle of the year. I think a good way to describe this paddle is power when you want it. But that's not to say that this paddle isn't super controllable. I really do feel that when you want to make shots on certain parts of the court, it's really easy to dictate those shots and make them happen. You can aim well, you can follow through well, and the paddle is not going to hold you back because it has too much of one of these things imbalanced. And the more I play, the more I really do prefer a paddle like that, where you have a good mix of everything, but nothing necessarily in excess. Speaking of which, let's talk about the delistings. We had a few paddles delisted. We had the Mod T15, which is a super powerful paddle, basically a Yola Gen free, which I chose not to make videos on because I knew those weren't going to be legal for very long. The Gearbox, which I love, but is also a paddle that just hits like a cannon. And then surprisingly, the Black Ace also getting delisted, which is a very poppy paddle. So you see an excess of power and you see an excess of pop from the paddles they chose weren't moving the game forward. This paddle is not like those paddles where it's an excess of one thing, but it's a good mix of everything in my opinion. And it's something that makes it easy for, you know, someone who's just getting into the game to pick up, but also for someone who's very seasoned to really master. I also really like that it's Gen 1.5 because that has kind of been a paddle construction that is safer than a lot of other ones. I mean, you saw the issues with thermoforming. You saw tons of issues with Gen 3, including Vatic's own paddle earlier this year. And I can safely say that I've hit this paddle quite a bit and I haven't had any noticeable huge differences in it. I haven't had any issues with construction as of yet. I'll update you if that changes, but it really does feel like a solid paddle. I do have to give a shout out to the Bread and Butter Shogun. That would be my number 2 paddle, and I really do like that paddle for a lot of similar reasons. It just feels unlike any other paddle I've played with. It's super fun to play with. It looks great, but the real difference was that this has a little bit of hidden extra power when you need it. But yeah, I don't want to make this video too long. That's just my favorite paddle of the year. It goes for $150, which I think is more than fair, but you can get another $10 off of that using the code JORDANIRWIN, all caps when you spell the man's name. Let's go. So yeah, you can use my code if you want to pick this paddle up and save a little bit of money, or you can use any of the other great creator codes out there. There's a lot of good creators in this space, and I really do love that about it. So yeah, that's my 3.5 opinion on the paddle. I don't want to make this video too long, but I really like it. Really like where Pickleball's headed, and I think they're making some decisions to make the game more fun tomorrow. So let me know what you think about the bannings. Let me know what you think about the paddle. Let me know what your favorite paddle of the year was and why. Let's discuss. Let's have fun. You guys go play Pickleball in the new year, and I'll see you out there. Peace out. Have a good one. God bless.